Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily, the first English news program in Poland. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. The leader of the Law and Justice Party, Jarosław Kaczyński, sent out a strong message during today's party convention. His speech concerned the defense of the integrity of family and Polish children against LGBT propaganda. During the conference, the party's candidate for the European Parliament signed a European declaration, including the party's campaign promises for the upcoming elections to the European Parliament in May.
The Law and Justice Party chairman once again underlined the importance of the upcoming autumn elections to the Sejm and Senate.
A stawką tych wyborów
The future of our nation and our country will be settled in these elections. I also said, and I will repeat that, if our opponents end up winning, it will not be as bad as it was before, it will be worse.
trzeba powtarzać.
Jarosław Kaczyński stated that social programs supporting families are the most important to his party.
My, szanowni państwo, inwestujemy w rodzinę.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are investing in the Polish family. We are investing in the family because family is a basic social structure which is failing at the core of our civilization, including Polish civilization and tradition.
Naszej cywilizacji. Także polskiej cywilizacji, polskiej tradycji.
The leader of the ruling party pointed to the dangers facing Polish families, for instance the heavily debated LGBT+ declaration signed by the Warsaw mayor Rafał Trzaskowski.
Trudno to nazwać wychowaniem.
We cannot call that education because it is not education, it is social engineering, which aims at changing a person. Sexualization of children at a very young age is in its core. Tolerance is crucial, it must be respected, and I will stress that again. However, we cannot mistake tolerance with affirmation. Affirmation is support. Affirmation leads to an idea or some sort of institution spreading and strengthening. Marriage and family values are affirmed in Poland through our culture and our law, and we will always say no to attacks on children.
Czy jakieś zjawisko społeczne się rozszerzało?
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki mentioned the ruling party's new election program, colloquially called the Kaczyński's Five.
Nasi konkurenci polityczni.
Our political opponents see Europeanship as a cultural revolution, as introducing a revolt. For us, Europeanship means a better life for Poles, providing bus links, 500+ zlotys for the first child, a pension program, and no income tax for the youngest workers. We are building up the middle class. I want to be the Prime Minister of a wider middle class, not the elites. They will make it work for themselves. The Law and Justice Party is the best host for this country.
France experienced yet another violent Saturday. It's the 17th weekend of the Yellow Vest protests. According to its organizers, today's manifestations are to decide the fate of an initiative in the entire country. More on the subject, Zbigniew Stefanek reporting from France.
Dzisiaj odbył się kolejny dzień ogólnokrajowych protestów.
Today there was another Yellow Vest protest across the country. They took place in most of the bigger cities in France: Paris, Bordeaux, Toulouse, Lille or Strasbourg. However, it seems that the motivation among the protesters is lessening by the day. In the last week there were only 33,000 protesters accounted for. At the same time, support for the current president Emmanuel Macron is on the rise. In a recent opinion poll, Macron ended up with 31% of the votes. The French head of state went on a counter-offensive and continues the debate which he himself initiated, which ends on March 15th. The Yellow Vest protesters already announced that they will gather on the streets a day later to put pressure on the current authorities, so they draw some conclusions from the debate and include them in the proposed solutions for the issue. It seems that Paris will have to answer in front of the International Investigative Commission for the alleged abuse of power by the French law enforcement when dealing with the protests. The investigation was called for by the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet.
Tak, aby ci uwzględnili konkluzję tej debaty.
The Polish parliament might revise the Sunday trading law. Currently, trading in large stores is prohibited on 3 Sundays in each month. The law was originally intended to improve the prospect of small family-owned grocery stores. However, the evidence suggests that the law has not been effective, and small family-owned stores are reporting operational losses. In an interview with the TVN24, the Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki spoke about this issue.
In an interview for the TVN24 channel, Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki admitted that he has taken changes to the Sunday trading prohibition under consideration. He added that a political debate concerning the social and economic effects is going to take place. Unfortunately, the evolution of the Polish economy in the time of the Third Republic of Poland led to the fact that foreign shops and shopping centres are dominating. So one of the goals, even a dream, was for the lesser Polish shops to develop. The first analyses indicate that this didn't happen. My imagination goes far. I see a variety of solutions. We can take different actions, but exactly what? To answer that, we have to wait a while. The Sunday trade prohibition came into force in January 2018. The draft law was introduced by the Solidarity Trade Union. Workers in the big shopping centres demanded Sundays free of work. According to originators, there is no need to change the law, but to clarify it. Opinions of MPs are divided. They're due to work on the two trade prohibition drafts on March 13th. The first draft was introduced by the Modern Party.
Na każde 4 niedziele.
The draft abolishes the trade prohibition law, but introduces a guarantee that employees have 2 Sundays off per month instead. The second draft was introduced by the Law and Justice Party, but there are no details about it. The party's previous draft concerned the trade prohibition for shops that operate as post offices, but this proposition will be withdrawn in favour of other changes. There won't be a return to general trading. It's all about clarifying this law. According to publicist Rafał Ziemkiewicz, Hungary had a similar problem and retreated from the trade prohibition. The Hungarian Prime Minister retreated from this law, but he's a pragmatic politician. Our politicians are waiting for the Solidarity Trade Union's opinion. The trade prohibition introduces chaos and consumers don't like that. The Sunday trade prohibition has been introduced gradually since January 2018. Now it operates on 3 Sundays of the month. According to the law, shops will be closed on every Sunday from next year, with days leading up to Christmas excluded.
Manfred Weber, the leader of the largest party group in the European Parliament, the EPP, has said that it's up to Viktor Orban whether he wants his party, Fidesz, to remain in the EPP. The EPP will meet on March 20th to discuss whether or not to throw Fidesz out over an anti-mass immigration campaign ad the party has conducted in Hungary. In said ad, the president of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, and the US billionaire George Soros were accused of plotting to destroy European civilization through mass immigration.
The leader of the EPP, Manfred Weber, states that Orban's actions will decide whether Fidesz will stay in the EPP or not.
Viktor Orban in the last years and months and days always were clearly committed that he wants to stay inside of the European People's Party. He wants to be member of this formation. And if he cannot stay, then he wants to, in a way, be kicked out. So there was a clear commitment from him on the table that he wants to stay. When he wants to change now his opinion, then he decides for himself in which political formation he wants to stay. So it's up to him to decide in which political family Fidesz should be placed.
Gergely Gulyas, the chief of staff of the Hungarian Prime Minister's office, argues that it's only the parties within the EPP which voted for the legislation of mandatory refugee relocation quotas that now want revenge against Fidesz. Only parties within the EPP who supported and voted for the immigration quotas in the European Parliament attack Fidesz. Gulyas continued by stating that Fidesz wants to stay in the EPP, but he doesn't believe that it would hurt the party if they were forced to leave. We have set our aim, which is to participate at the European Parliament elections as members of the EPP. We think this is the interest of the European People's Party too. If the EPP thinks otherwise, then of course there is a possibility for everything. I don't even think that this would actually hurt us itself, but we still would like if the unity of the EPP could be maintained until the elections. If the EPP decides on March 20th to expel Fidesz, it's likely that they will form a new party group together with right-wing parties such as the Polish Law and Justice Party and Matteo Salvini's Italian Lega Party. The European elections will take place in late May.
That's it for today. See you next time on Poland Daily. But stay tuned for the Poland Daily Weather Report, followed by Poland Daily Business.
Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Tonight the highest temperature will be 8 degrees in the area of Krakow and the lowest 2 degrees in the area of Olsztyn. 4 degrees will be seen around Warsaw and Łódź. And if we check the forecast for tomorrow, we will see that there will be some snow around Olsztyn with 7 degrees, 8 degrees in Warsaw, and the warmest will be Krakow with 14 degrees, as well as Wrocław. 11 degrees will be seen in Rzeszów and in Zielona Góra. If we look at the map for tomorrow, we will see that the maximum temperature will be 14 degrees around Krakow, as well as Wrocław, 8 degrees in Warsaw, 9 degrees in Łódź, and the coolest will be 7 degrees in the area of Gdańsk, as well as in Olsztyn, with some snow as well. The next 3 days in Poland, the maximum temperature on Monday will be 9 degrees, so there will be a cool down. On Tuesday, the maximum temperature will be only 6 degrees in the southern parts. We are expecting also quite a bit of snow on Tuesday. And on Wednesday, the minimum temperature will be 2 degrees in central Poland. The maximum will be 8 degrees with snow as well. This is all for tonight. Thank you.
Poland Daily Business, welcome to our show and welcome to Katarzyna Bylińska from Parrot One Company.
Yes, thank you very much for having me.
So first of all, let's say, what is Parrot One and what is this application for?
Yes, so Parrot One is basically a revolutionary application that helps all of the disabled people, all of the elderly, but also youth to communicate in written phase, in written modern.
How does it work?
Well, simply it's an application that gives us text predictions, but not only simple words, but also grammatically correct phrases with punctuation marks as well. It also allows you to translate those simple Polish words or simple Polish phrases into English and back.
Okay, there is also an unusual story behind this application.
Well, I wouldn't say an unusual story, it's an unusual person, because our founder and the person who gave the idea for the application is a disabled person, but he's very modest and he's very hardworking and he doesn't want the world to be as he found it. He wants the world to be better. And when he was working, because he's active on a job market, and when he was working he realized that because of his disease, he's suffering from neurospasticity, and because of his disease, his muscles were weaker, and it cost him a lot of energy to write simple sentences. So he realized he needs some tool to help him do that. Instead of writing every phrase over and over again, letter by letter, he decided it would be beneficial for him to have something that just gives him those sentences that he usually uses. So he invented the app.
He invented the app. There is a functional model of the application. And what next?
Well, actually, we are still working on developing the dictionary, so it gives you more options to choose from. Simply, the application learns from the way you use it, so it will give you the sentences that you normally use once you type them in. They will show up. But it would be better if it was just there in the first place. So we are developing the dictionary. However, we're also working on the hardware. We're working on a special keyboard that will be available for just about anyone because the price will be low and it will come this year, but it has this special panel, OLED panel, that gives you the sentences. So instead of using a standard keyboard, you can use this one and have all the advantages of an application in this simple device.
So this is the product that's came up in Poland for Polish users, but will it be available elsewhere?
Well, we're still searching for somebody who will give us this extra amount of money to make it worldwide. But yes, it will be available at some point.
The simple idea, the application that guesses what the person wants to say and suggests the further words, and by one tap and you can type it in.
Yes.
It is also useful for those who came to Poland and for example, are not yet fully fluent in our one of the easiest, so to speak, languages in the world.
Yeah, of course. Well, obviously, it will be helpful to all of the people. So actually, the children who are now learning English and still have problems with correct grammatically correct sentences, but we're aiming basically the most market is. Now, let me start it differently. So, this application was mainly created for the disabled and for elderly, because these people have problems with writing fast, and this is the barrier that it's hard for them to cross. But with our application, instead of using 16 clicks to write a sentence, they will use 4. So the save of time is like half a minute, 1 minute. And for a normal user, it's silly. 1 minute, what is it? But if you're doing it all the time, and if you're trying to communicate via, I don't know, Facebook Messenger, or just writing a simple email, that causes you problems. Instead of 1 minute, you waste, I don't know, 5, 10, and try working like that.
So the disabled market, the devices that makes easier the life of those elderly and disabled is a huge market, and
yes,
this is something that is amazing. Do you have anything comparable in the world market? Have you done your search?
That is the best thing in the world. There isn't a thing like that. There isn't an application that actually helps you to write. Of course, we have T9 dictionaries and stuff like that, but they aren't perfect. Our application gives you the correct sentences, the one that you want to use, not the one that they have, because it learns from the style that you're writing in, so it's better.
Thank you very much, and we wish you luck. Paulina Bylińska of Parrot One was our guest, and please remember the name of Piotr Lewandowski, who is a founder of this and many other technical companies here in Poland. That's it for tonight. Poland Daily Business returns tomorrow.
Welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. Tomorrow during the day we are expecting 14 degrees the maximum in the area of Krakow, also in Wrocław. The minimum will be 7 degrees in Gdańsk as well as in Olsztyn, where there will be some snow as well. If we look at the forecast in Europe for tomorrow, we will see quite high temperatures. 15 degrees will be seen in Vienna, 16 degrees in Prague, 19 in Bratislava, and the maximum will be 20 degrees in the Athens in Greece. Very nice and sunny in Lisbon as well as in Sofia. The minimum temperature tomorrow will be 1 degree in Helsinki with showers and snow as well. This is all for tonight. Thank you.
In today's Poland Daily Culture, we're going to show you one of the lesser spoken about but very visible aspects of Polish life in the 20th century, the neon sign. The Neon Museum in Warsaw is dedicated to the documentation and the preservation of Cold War-era neon signs and electrographic design. Since 2005, they have been engaged in the enormous task of documenting and preserving the last surviving remnants of the Great Neonization campaign across the former Eastern Bloc. Their ongoing efforts have been credited with ushering in a new neon renaissance throughout Poland, a movement that began with the opening of the first and only museum of its kind in Europe. The permanent collection contains hundreds of dazzling neon signs and other electrographic artifacts, many of which were designed by the great artists of the age, who were responsible for the world-famous Polish poster school. The museum illustrates the unique characteristics of a known art form which was born from revolution, served as state propaganda, and flourished during Poland's post-war period.
I didn't realise sort of people in high places had this
Yes.
specific interest in it. So tell us a little something about the collection here. How many sort of sets of lights do you have, and are they all on display, or have you had to hold some back and they're in storage?
We actually have over 100 neons. Not all of them fit here, so we have a storage place above us. We like to show more neons, but we have a space constraint. So we all the time try to optimize the exhibition and introduce new neons. The biggest neons are also located in the buildings around the museum. Because, for example, we have a jubilar jewelry shop neon, which is 8 meters long and 4 meters high. So it wouldn't fit in any building, so the only place for it is to hang outside. We have mainly neons from Warsaw, but also from other cities, and recently we also started to collect neons from other former socialist countries.
And what do you intend to do with those if you're kind of already limited for space?
Well, we are looking for a bigger space and usually also sometimes every year change slightly the exhibition to show new neons here as well.
And do you have any kind of particular events that happen here? Is there sort of specific exhibitions where you want to show something, I don't know, kind of specific or?
Well, we have the cinema corner. We certainly want to show the history of the neons and the artistic design of the neons, as well, especially for the foreign tourists. Because, well, it's an interesting part of our history, of our design, of centrally planned art that was supposed to have a useful purpose. So that's this interesting aspect. And we have a lot of tourists from abroad. The story behind the neons is important for us as well.
I had noticed that. So what would you say the kind of proportion of sort of foreign to domestic visitors you have?
Actually, I would say 50-50. Especially busy during the weekends, and we are located here in Praga district. It's not a place where you walk by chance, so we have very determined tourists that want to come here, especially for the museum, and that's what we like, and we're happy about that.
Yeah, very nice. So it kind of fits into maybe the broader part of this area, because you know it's a kind of bit of a cultural hub, and perhaps it's something that visitors could see more of. What do you think is the kind of attraction for foreign visitors? You know, I guess like the actual the significance for Poles is probably better understood. It's more natural for them. But what do you think the interest is for the foreign visitors?
Actually, that's interesting. I would say the artistic value. A lot of people come here for, I don't know, for Instagram sessions. So we have like thousands of photos taken and put on Instagram. I think foreigners usually appreciate the artistic value of the neons. And they're very, very nice for the eye and look very nice on the pictures. I think that's the most important thing.
I see, very nice. Well, aside from perhaps looking for a future location, do you have any other future plans for the museum?
Well, every year we try to renovate 1 or 2 neons for the for the night of the museums when we have a lot of guests. So probably this year we'll have a new neon after renovation. It's a very expensive task, so it takes time, and we can't renovate all the neons we have. So we have to do it slowly. We also do a lot of education programs for children, for example. And we will continue that as well.
Sort of showing them how to create the lights, or the process?
More educational about the history of the neons, creation, design of the neons, and also because it's for different age groups, so also for the older children, also the production process as well.
Excellent. Okay, Mr. Witold Urbanowicz, thank you very much for joining us here at Poland Daily Culture.
Thank you.
Okay then, Witold, so we're just coming up to a well-known neon here, which is the Biedronka sign.
Yes, it means Lady Bird. This neon was hanging over a milk bar. It was a chain of cheap places to eat. They usually had different names. So this is one of designed for this specific location. It's like a cocktail, strawberry cocktail glass. And the most interesting part is the word Biedronka. The neon tube represents the handwriting. And actually it requires a lot of skill of the glass maker to make such a complicated shape. We had to put it behind the plexiglass because it's popular neons for our visitors to photograph with. And some of them had strange ideas, like try to lick the neon to get a better shot. So we had to put protection for the neon.
Note to everybody, do not lick the neon sign. Could end very badly. Okay, let's move on to the next one.
So we are going slowly to Berlin.
Okay.
It's our first neon in the collection. It's from the 1975. It was hanging over a shop with clothes and then with equipment, electrical equipment for houses. It's interesting because you can see the glass tubes are transparent, and you can actually see how the neon gas flows. The neon gas is red, and actually you can see closely when you look how it fills the neon tubes. And you don't have that occasion to do it oftenly, so you can see it here.
Gives a kind of pulsating effect to the light, which is quite different from the other colours, yeah?
Yes, because in other neons, for example in Bajeczny, we can walk. The neon tubes are covered with powder. We use here other gas, and the gas with the powder, in this case, gives the color pink.
Okay.
And this neon is also interesting because it's the name of the candy bar, popular candy bar in Poland. And this neon was hanging over a shop with candies. It came to our collection in very bad shape, but using the original drawings, we were able to recreate the neon, and it looks very nice. I don't know, it reminds me of a circus or a Western movie.
Very much. It's definitely given me a kind of flavour of Western movie about this kind of waviness to the design, And Bajeczny is still... They still produce
Yes,
them,
you can
right?
still buy the Bajeczny, but it has a different font. So this was also one for the location of the candy shop.
I see. Okay, shall we take a look at the next one?
Yes, I think everyone knows Cepelia. Cepelia is like the socialist company that was created in the 1940s, 1950s. It was a place for central folk industry shop where you could buy folk art. We still have a lot of Cepelias in Poland, and they have all the similar neons. This particular neon is quite old. It's from 1959.
I see.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are here at the reenactment of one of the most historical battles that took place in Poland. The battle known as Ościnka Grochowska took place 188 years ago, and it was what ultimately stopped the Russians from taking over Warsaw. In the year 1795, Poland was partitioned by three of its neighbors, Russia, Prussia, and Austria. They were wiped out of the map of Europe, but almost 30 years later, they rise up against the Russian forces in what otherwise known as the November Uprising. Thanks to this very battle, the Poles managed to stop the Russians from invading Warsaw, taking over the capital, and potentially spare the lives of thousands of civilians. Many Poles fought on the side of France during the Napoleonic Wars. As a result, the French set up a semi-independent state called the Duchy of Warsaw in 1807. After Napoleon's defeat at Waterloo and the 1815 Congress of Vienna, Russia took control over Warsaw again. However, one of the provisions of the Congress of Vienna stipulated that the semi-autonomous status of the Duchy of Warsaw would remain in the new Russian satellite state known as the Congress Kingdom. The Polish Congress Kingdom was allowed to have its own constitution, one of the most liberal in Europe of the time. But a couple of years after the Vienna Congress, the Russian Tsar started ignoring the constitution. As a consequence, the Poles decided to revolt against the Russian Empire in 1830, an event which became known as the November Uprising. Before Poland was partitioned, it was known as the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and it consists of many ethnicities. So I was wondering, did people of different origins came together to fight against the Russians during the November Uprising?
Przypomnijmy, że Rzeczpospolita, która istniała przez 500 lat.
We need to remember that the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, which existed for 500 years, was made up of two states, the Grand Duchy of Lithuania and the Kingdom of Poland, but it rested on four ethnicities. The Grand Duchy of Lithuania included Lithuanians and Ruthenians, later known as Belarusians. The Lithuanians were Catholic, while the Belarusians were Orthodox. The Kingdom of Poland was made up of Catholic Poles and Orthodox or Greek Catholic Ruthenians, later known as Ukrainians. In every uprising against the partitioning powers, all four nations of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth rose up together, naturally to a varying degree. The uprisings were usually started and were most intense on the territory of the Kingdom of Poland, but the Grand Duchy of Lithuania would quickly join forces, and that help came not only from the Poles living in the Grand Duchy, and there was plenty of them, but also the native Lithuanians from Samogitiya, who only spoke in Lithuanian. They formed military units which, for some time, managed to cut off the Russian troops in Poland from reinforcements coming from St. Petersburg. During the November Uprising, there was a severe outbreak of cholera. It claimed the life of von Tybicz, the Russian commander tasked with putting down the uprising. Due to the Lithuanians blocking the way, the man to replace him, General Paszkiewicz, had to sail to Poland via East Prussia, since he would have been captured by Lithuanian or Latvian insurgents if he would try to travel through those areas. In result, we have a very interesting sequence of events. On February 6, 1831, the Tsarist army invaded Poland. Already in March, the November Uprising breaks out in Lithuania. There, they used guerrilla tactics and fought very bravely. In April, the uprising erupts in Latvia and Belarus. It is from Latvia that Emilia Plata, the famous female Polish soldier, sets off to join the uprising. According to the legend, she once ended up sword-fighting some Cossack troops who were shocked when they realized that they were fighting with a woman dressed as a man. And finally, in May, the uprising starts in Ukraine, in the regions of Volhynia, Podolia and Kiev. This proves that during the times of the petitions, there was an underground Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth of sorts, consisting of all four nations, which would resurface during the uprisings. We can also add that the Jewish minority took active part in the uprisings, and by that I mean all Jews, Polish Jews, Lithuanian Jews, Belarusian Jews, and even the Ukrainian Jews. The Armenian minority of the Commonwealth also participated. Most of them lived in the Austro-Hungarian partition, but they spent vast sums of equipment and weapons for the insurgents, sending money north to the Russian partition, where the fighting was taking place. The Polish Tatar minority also joined the fight. They are a phenomenon on a European scale, as they are Muslims but still consider themselves fierce patriots of the Commonwealth. And then we have the smallest minority, the Karaims, who also contributed with both money and their young men to the cause of the November Uprising. They all felt that they inherited the traditions of the Commonwealth of four nations.
The Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth consisted of several numerous ethnicities. 17 years after the fall of the November Uprising, the 1848 Spring of Nations broke out. It's viewed as the start of a nationalist wave sweeping across Europe. Next up, we will talk to Dr. Krzysztof Jabłonka, about inter-ethnic relations in the former Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth following the November Uprising. So around the time of 1848, an event known as the Spring of Nations kind of brought awareness to nationalism, and in many countries, nationalist movements started getting bigger than they were. And I was wondering, did the same thing happen in the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth?
Trzeba pamiętać, że
We must remember that when the Spring of Nations shook up Europe, practically no events took place in Tsarist Russia, maybe apart from one. The situation in the Polish part of the Russian Empire was hopeless, as the so-called Pashkiewicz Night had engulfed us, meaning that we were living under a reign of terror and oppression, which managed to pacify us in those years. Apart from some underground activity and a slow start of the emergence of nationalism in Lithuania, Belarus and in Ukraine, for example, it was in those years that the national bard of Ukraine, Taras Shevchenko, would be arrested by the Tsarist regime. We had no uprisings breaking out. However, during the Spring of Nations, the Tsarist army did put down the Hungarian uprising. The four nations making up the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth did fight shoulder to shoulder in another uprising after the November Uprising. It happened during the January Uprising of 1863 to 1864. As you can tell by the name, it broke out in January, more precisely in the night between January 22nd and 23rd, and it broke out in the former Kingdom of Poland. But already by February, it also breaks out in Lithuania. In March, fighting starts in Belarus. In April, the uprising erupts in Ukraine, and in May, Latvia joins the struggle. Even the students of the University of Dorpat in what is today Estonia joined the uprising. So the call to arms and the fight for freedom is heard everywhere. However, thanks to the meticulous work of the Russian secret police, the so-called Ochrana, they eventually succeeded in creating a conflict between the Poles and the Lithuanians. The young Lithuanians educated in schools usually financed by the Tsarist regime to educate the children of Lithuanian peasants are thought that Lithuania suffers because of the Poles, that Poland has been polonizing them. And it's true that the Lithuanian elite spoke in Polish, but it just mirrored the situation in Scotland, for example, where the Scottish elite spoke in English. The Lithuanian elite still viewed themselves as Lithuanians. The gradually developing conflict between Poles and Lithuanians, as well as Poles and Ukrainians. There was also an attempt by the Russians to start a similar conflict between Poles and Belarusians, but that attempt was less successful. The Belarusians belonged to the Uniate of Greek Catholic Church, but the Tsarist regime crushed it using horrifying methods. Belarusians who refused to convert would sometimes prefer to set their homes ablaze and perish with their families rather than convert to the Orthodox faith. So the Belarusians did not follow the direction of Moscow and would remain brothers of the Polish nation until the First World War. Unfortunately, both Lithuania and Ukraine became anti-Polish for some time. It was first in our own times that the situation in international politics made an environment possible in which we can reconcile.
As we can observe, the memories of the historical battles are still kept alive and well, even centuries after the battles have taken place. Clearly, the struggle for national sovereignty is still a key value within the Polish collective memory. That's it for today. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello and welcome back to Poland Daily Travel. We're glad you tuned in. Or we're glad you're watching us on YouTube. Lots of stuff to see. Your best source for travel information about Poland. We'll be venturing forth soon to exciting sites around Poland and nearby. But today we're in Warsaw and we're focusing on the Warsaw Old Town. We start at St. Anna's Church and talk about its significance and how Poland saved Europe twice. That's right, count it, twice. We'll be looking at some of the secrets of the old town, some of the stories and vignettes, and just two guys going for a walk on a sunny day. So stay with us on Poland Daily Travel. We're really glad you tuned in, because why do we do this? We do it for you. Stay with us.
There's a black line I told you about.
Yeah.
The black line that tells us which element of the city walls is original underneath the line, and above it's reconstructed. So look how precise the reconstruction was. And please try to imagine how many clay bricks they needed. Imagine, clay brick must spend the proper time in the proper temperature. And time and space and heat is money. That's why nowadays people are constructing things out of steel and glass. Reconstruction of the old town was so amazingly expensive that every single Polish man paid for it. Marshall Plan didn't reach this place. Imagine, you are living in the countryside, you are waking up in the morning on Friday and you know that you will not have your weekend, but there will be a bus coming to your village, taking you, you will come in here and you will work for the reconstruction of Warsaw. And then many buildings in Poland were teared down so to have the clay bricks, because a broken brick cannot be used anymore. So it represents the size and the sacrifice that was given for reconstruction of this city.
Huh. What is this? There's a statue over here.
Oh yes, that's a cool guy.
Statue?
Well, you know what I like about him.
Let's go over and see it.
Yeah.
Tell me about it when we get there.
Let's do it.
You know, I meant to ask you, what was this back there? There's the sign of the cross and the anchor. Well, it actually makes an anchor. It's a cross and a hook.
The anchor,
what's that about?
Symbol we know from the symbol of Polish independence, of Warsaw Uprising 1944. The anchor that's connected to P letter, that stands for Polish independence. The fact that Poland wants to stay in this place in the same way as a ship wants to stay in one place that's connected to this place with an anchor. And over there we saw an anchor connected to a Christian Catholic cross, which means that not only our country, not only our state, but also our philosophy stays in here. So these two symbols appear very frequently on historic sites of Warsaw and Poland.
Right, and so it's a symbol of the Warsaw Uprising. And we talked about the fella before, who was the general in charge. What was his name again?
Komorowski.
Komorowski. He was the general in charge of the Home Army, the AK, right? So, was that symbol devised by him or a committee, or?
The symbol in here was next to surname of Maria Konopnicka, who created a sort of anthem to an uprising that took place against Russia occupation in here. And also the sculpture in front of us refers to exactly same thing, and another uprising. There were so many of them against Russia. Unfortunately, these are not the battles that I will describe you with this glory ending as we did in the church, because all of these uprisings eventually ended in a very bad way for us, and more retaliations were appearing after this uprising. But the guy that we can see in here, Jan Kiliński, what I like about this sculpture, when we take a look at his face, when we take a look at his eyes, we can see no fear over there, even though he had just a little group of people. So to attack Russian embassy, which was right in here,
the embassy was here.
Russian embassy was
here. So that's why he's
here.
Sort of looking towards the embassy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Russian ambassadors were jumping out from the windows. Maybe over then they were happy, but eventually it brought us very difficult times, and then many people had to emigrate from this country because of very tough retaliations. He's a Sarmat, he's a Polish aristocracy. That's how he's dressed up. We can see the nobility belt on his waist. Only aristocracy could wear such. We can see this kinged sword in his hand, representing his power, his aristocratic rights that were cut by the Constitution of Poland, which made Polish society divided.
You mean reduced his rights? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is how Polish society got divided in this late 1700s.
1791.
Yes, 1791,
right?
our constitution,
Right.
then another partition, then we lose the independence in 1795. And you know what? Many people blame King Poniatowski for this. So when he was in charge, then he must be responsible for this. But there was no man in our history, or there were just a few men who did so much for our country. He established the school for future Polish aristocracy in territory of the University of Warsaw. King Poniatowski hired the best painters, for instance, Bernardo Bellotto that we talked about, Canaletto. He also established the order of Virtuti Militari, which is highest possible order for bravery that was given to many people involved in these uprisings against Russia. So that was a king that made a lot of good things for us, and what he left is the Royal Łazienki Garden, the Royal Łazienki Park that I will show you one day.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. Again, and showing it to people again in the spring when it's all green, right?
Yes, when it will bloom and we can feel the fresh smelling flowers and blooming roses over there. And then maybe starting from half of May, we'll participate in one of Frédéric Chopin concerts next to Frédéric Chopin sculpture, free for the guests and the locals.
Poland Daily Travel. We're continuing our walk. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
We will. Will.
Indeed. This is a famous statue. It's one of the most famous statues in the whole city. And yet, it is nobody famous, particularly. Certainly not a king or a emperor or a potentate or an aristocrat.
But maybe one day. It's a sculpture about 4-year-old boy. And even 4-year-old children were involved in Warsaw Uprising 1944 and all the moments of German occupation of Warsaw during World War II. And even such children were executed during mass executions. Even 9 months babies were killed during mass executions in Warsaw, and such boys were delivering messages from one place to another, and they were also killed. And when we take a look at this little fellow, we can see that the helmet is too big for him. We can see the coat is too big. We can see the rifle and his shoes are too big. But the idea of this sculpture is not that everything was too big for him, but he was just too small for all of this.
And did they actually have a gun? Did he actually have a gun?
So,
or is that an artist's rendering? They didn't. 4-year-olds didn't have guns.
The gun in here is metaphoric.
It's metaphoric
because it's.
I think it's important to say that because some people may take
of course,
take it literally.
When it comes to moments of Warsaw Uprising, 1944, in here we were 100 dependent on the regular military law adopted by Polish underground army. Nothing was happened by a coincidence. Even during German occupation.
Nothing happened by coincidence. Everything was ordered, and I mean, this was a secret army, but incredibly well organized.
And you couldn't just walk around the street and kill one soldier because you saw that he's a German soldier. Maybe he was a good boy. Maybe Mama was waiting for him. So whenever Polish underground army was assassinating particular German soldier, it was according to the crimes that he committed, and they were stated by the underground army, by the underground court, and then the death sentence was officially given. Then his documents had to be taken from him and provided to the underground court, and this is how the case was closed. So no one was running around with rifles and machine guns in here just to kill some German soldiers, because retaliations for this would be extremely tough and much more Polish people would be killed. We knew about this, but still Polish underground army was killing nastiest German soldiers and even most important general in Warsaw, Franz Kuchera, the guy that we mentioned before.
Yeah, you were talking about him. He was the governor of Warsaw.
Correct.
Who was assassinated. and we said that they did not manage to assassinate the leader of the Home Army. I mean, these people were incredibly brave. What people don't may not know, what people may not know, and it'd be easy not to know this unless you read a couple of books about the Warsaw Uprising or watch a good documentary. The information is there, but the story is so incredible that you would have virtually an army of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts moving through the city, both through canals underneath the city, moving through the forest on bicycles and on foot, on motorcycles when they could get them, carrying messages, moving arms, manufacturing bombs, all of these things.
Warsaw was the only city under German occupation that was producing weapons.
Right.
We were producing grenades in food factories, so instead of putting over there some tuna, we were putting over there some explosives, and this is how they were creating big bombs. We were producing a kind of British Sten machine guns that were easy to carry under your coat. Original ones you can find in Warsaw Uprising Museum in Warsaw.
Yeah, I have one under my coat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in case they come back.
Okay, so just don't tell it to anyone that you have a machine gun under your coat.
Well, I don't usually tell anyone, but I guess I just told everyone. Usually I keep that to myself. Anyway, stay tuned to Poland Daily Travel. We're here walking around on a beautiful day in the Warsaw Old Town. We're taking our time and just talking and showing you some of the sights here. It's really an incredible place. Stay with us.